Let's bring in our guest, Professor K. Ikechukwu is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. Joins us from Abuja Studio. Prof, good morning and good to see you.
Good morning, even though I can't see you from here.
My apologies.
I've lost connection here. Okay. I'm looking at a blank screen in front of me. I don't know if you're seeing me.
I can see you loud and clear. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll turn it on pretty soon. All right. All right, Prof. I don't know whether you have any intervention between on this salvo that is going on. So the Catholic Bishops Conference had met with the President, made their presentation as they see it, from security to the issue of elections to the issue of governance and the issue of economy. The President also responded from his own standpoint. And then John Cardinal Anaikon, a Lord Spiritual, also went to grant an interview a few days later and gave perspective to some of the things that were said. And then like all hell broke loose in terms of what the remarks are and what it shouldn't be and what should be. What do you make of it?
Well, what I make of it is that we're in a democracy, and in a big nation like Nigeria, there are what you call institutional pillars for good behavior. It includes the church, it includes the institutions of state, and it includes the presidency itself. So the Catholic bishops, looking at the nation, concerned about a couple of issues they raised, like security among others, felt the need to speak to the President. Now, what they did is part of what you call the feedback loop for good governance, where interest groups, individuals, institutions, and stakeholders take time to raise issues with those who should do something about it. So what they did is right. It's their duty to draw the attention of government to what some of their congregants are saying that's happening to them and is happening to all of us. So that in itself is correct, is the proper thing to do. Now the President's response from his own perspective also would seem to be, okay, for him, you said what you want to say, but this is what I think. Then when I caused the interview, he calmly and in detail brought out some of the issues they raised with the President and their reasons for doing so. Now, my take on this is fairly simple. In terms of the actual specific social problems they raised before the President, the bishops are right in their observations. I believe that most of the reactions, yes, they are understandable defense of government, but the question for me is, that defense, does it carry weight outside of those who are making the defense? Is it consistent with the experience of Nigerians? And all of that. So, I believe they've done what they ought to do. Substantially, most of what they said, they are not satisfied with. I believe that they are correct in that regard. I also expected not quite the kind of response government gave, but again, people in government feel they have a duty to show two things. One, that they are on course, and two, that they are doing the right things. What I think they overlook is that they need also to worry about believability when they speak. And so they've made their view. If you take entries in the media, they can say, oh, 10 people say bad things about us, but we said 20 people, or we made 20 entries, so it's on our side. No. It's a question of truth. It's a question of citizen welfare. It's a question of the evidence before us. And in terms of the evidence before us as citizens all over the Federation, it is bad news, with all due respect to those who differ.
I didn't know you have already stopped, so I just wanted you to continue your remarks. But while I have this one.
So, borrowing from, issues raised at that meeting as well, Prof. If you were following, I'm hoping one of the things Cardinal Onoeko also spoke to was the appeal by the Catholic bishops for neutrality, for which the President guaranteed INEC's neutrality. The bishops were appealing for a level playing field for all members of the opposition to find expression in the electoral year. And so, if we tied that to INEC's release of candidates list, which came through on Saturday, and its refusal of the manual submission of the presidential candidates put forward by a particular group, is that a test for INEC's neutrality? And has INEC passed based on the Supreme Court judgment that seemed to have settled the matter between the feuding PDP groups back then in May? What are your thoughts on this, Prof?
Well, beginning with the entire electoral process itself, the steps INEC has taken can be described as reassuring. In other words, there will be no manual voting and all the rest of it. Whereas I have some optimism in that regard, I look at it also, and I invite all of us to look at it with a sense of recent history. Before Yakubu's election of 2023, our enthusiasm was beyond the moon. We expected the RF to work. We were looking at an electoral process that was unimpeachable under him. And therefore, everybody was sure that truth will prevail, the voters' performance will be respected, etc. What did we get? As a matter of fact, apart from Humphrey Nwosu, I don't think there's been any other time in Nigeria's history that Nigerians look forward to electoral credibility more than they did in the 2023 elections. So, whereas I will commend INEC for what we are seeing on the table, I will urge caution in terms of the excitement. Because it's one thing to tell us all of this, is another thing for that to be what will happen on the day of election. If you say there'll be no manual entry, and as the election takes place, you find a general collapse of one thing or the other, either the grid or the network or the internet, and it can be contrived. So let's be a little cautious in that regard. That's a major response to those announcements. But the thing to consider, okay, if you also look at the court judgment and the release of names and details by INEC, all of them are things people will look at and say, look, this it looks like we're about to have democracy at last. It looks like this government is ready to have a level playing field, etc. But if we look at that against the context of a lot of other things that's going on, most states of the federation now belong to the same party. That's number one. Number two, if you also look at the desperation you find in the political process, if you look at the pronouncements of those in government, if you look at the rumor, mischief I will call it, I don't know whether it's true or not, that for 3 years on, the capital budget has practically not really been expended, and it's all being warehoused for elections, and that if the money you give is not enough, the solution is more money. Whether that is true or not, I do not know. But if you recall your last guest spoke about budgetary allocations. That's Magnus and the rest of it. And I'm glad one of you asked the question about what is budgeted and what is released. As at probably 6 weeks or 2 months ago, about 6 weeks, the army had gotten 7%. I believe it would have been improved by now. But the point to make is that 7% by the middle of the year, and you're supposed to be fighting insecurity, that's very unsettling, among other things. So it will seem to present a very exciting front. We're looking forward to it. I had not been more excited about an election than I was in 2023. But look at the result. It was a major, major painful national embarrassment, with all due respect to those who differ. And the INEC chairman has also said, he had made pronouncements, that's the current INEC chairman, he has made pronouncements that give us a lot of hope. The materialization of that is another matter. As for a level playing field, I'm not calling for a level playing field. I'm calling for a field with clear rules of engagement, with enforceable penalties for misconduct, and with institutions of state that have credibility. And that includes the police and the rest of it. Let's note one point. INEC is not to protect electoral materials. That's the job of the security agencies. INEC is an election behavior monitor, regulator. That when you come, this is what you do and go. If they carry the ballot box, it's not INEC that will chase you. And more than 80% of those are not INEC office regular staff. So put on all of that together. Please let us be cautious in our optimism, because the political behavior around this election we are preparing for are extremely unsettling, and one which gives me some reason for pessimism. notwithstanding the obvious, if you like, institutional checks and balances being announced on television.
Should we be concerned when the president uses phrases like all is fair in politics?
Should we be concerned? Should we not? If you say all is fair in politics, it means there's nothing like morality. It means there's nothing like right and wrong. It means that even what is forbidden as evil by the Quran, that you can do it because you're in politics. It means that even what is forbidden by the Bible as evil, what is forbidden by our culture, what is forbidden by natural justice, equity, and good conscience, you can do it. After all, it's politics. No, I don't think that paradigm will give us a good society or improve any society or improve the moral standing of anybody. All is not fair in politics. There's a difference between right and wrong. But the president's statement takes us back to the reality we are facing, namely that the government has consistently acted, if you like, in line with this belief. So, perception of insensitivity among other things. So that may be why, but I don't agree, I don't subscribe to that perspective at all. I think I lost my earpiece.
Well, while we wait for Prof to get his earpiece back on, there's so many more things to reflect on from that particular meeting, particularly the president's pushback on the records of his administration as far as the eradication of poverty is concerned. When the Catholic bishops presented the records as not particularly working for Nigerians, and the president said we're on a sound footing, and that's where I want the Prof to reflect on, combined with his other comment where he said that hunger existed before he was born. How does that sit well with the promises of the administration, particularly at the onset, to transform the economy with economic reforms and the appeal for patience, to Nigerians, that this will eventually trickle down to the grassroots? Prof, I hope you got it.
Well, I got part of it, not the earlier part. So if you want to mention probably the first 30 seconds.
Yes,
before you even do that, let me register my protest about the earpiece. I suspect it's the village people of one of you that interfered with it, and I urge you to desist.
Certainly not from here or from
please, let's have the question, compressed a little so I can get it all together.
Yes, indeed.
I missed most of it.
The president's pushback on the concern that the economic reforms are not working for Nigerians, and his subsequent comments about hunger existing before he was born, and so the poor will always be with us. In fact, some of his other spokespersons have doubled down on that particular comment. How worried should we be about that?
Well, I'm a little concerned about that statement because it suggests some level of insensitivity, and it's probably not the best thing to say now because it doesn't. The government is carrying out reforms, no question about that. The intentions behind the reforms are very good, no question about that. But reforms are for human beings. And this government has been in place for 3 years going forward. The specific questions to ask in terms of impact is, are food prices better now? What was it when they came in and what is it now? Has poverty rate gone up or gone down? Has the value of the naira improved? The government will tell you that, look, we've stabilized the naira now. I mean, for many months, it now is between if you like, 1,400 to the dollar and 1,005. Sometimes even come to 135, 1,380 and co. Stability, wonderful. Can you do any business with that? What it means is that companies whose total value was, say, 100 million, and they were doing imports, today their total value is about 1/3 of that. That means they have had to sack people. That means the total volume of business has declined. That means the space they are in has also reduced. And the point I make in that connection, particularly reference to the Naira, is I ask, if a man is unconscious, falls down and is not breathing at all, this is a man who should be playing football, but he fell down and has stopped breathing. And you work on him until he is now awake and breathing. For 2 weeks he's unconscious. Is he a footballer? Can he take part in a football match? So when you celebrate stability, the stability must have a connection to life, to people, among other things. I will not fault the spokespersons of government in their perception of impact. They enumerate the reforms. After enumerating the reforms, they will also go ahead, as some of them will say that, look, prices are coming down, people are not acknowledging the efforts of this government, and that's why I think they get it wrong. Prices are not coming down. Insecurity is worsening. Not denying that government is making effort, but it is getting worse, among so many other indices. If, for instance, you have some government functionaries who are not so blatantly, permanently in denial, probably there will be some level of believability. But the upfront, if you like, counter-offensive, we are doing everything, people are not, who believes you? So it's not whether you said anything, but whether people, okay, all of you on this set, you're working. I believe all of us have cars. Before this government, I'll fill my tank with, I think, 11,000. Yeah, between 9 and 10,000, a full tank. Today, you fill it in 107,000. You fill the tank and use it for about a week. Where are you going to? Are you going to heaven at that cost? And assuming I'm on a regular salary, what has my salary done? They say, you see, this government has moved the salary from 30,000, I think, to 70. Can you imagine the increase? Nigeria should appreciate it. That's not the point. The point is the impact of that increase on citizen welfare. At the same time that salary has gone up by over 50%, other costs the salary is supposed to address, many of them have gone up by 400%. These are the facts. Remember that the fuel subsidy thing came up and it was supposed to be remedied by CNG. Now, the intention of the government in making sure, in cancelling the subsidy is commendable. But the CNG, as we speak, if you have a CNG car and you've converted, go to the stations and see whether you can get CNG, among so many other challenges that the people are facing. So those are the concerns on the basis of which spokespersons of government should kind of step it down a bit. Because it's almost like some kind of triumphalism. Oh, you're not even appreciating what we are doing. What do you mean? What's wrong with you? I'm not sure that's how it works. You have a wife, you're marrying your wife, you're doing your best. That's not the same thing as saying you hold her neck to the ground and you're punching her, saying, you can't you preside, I'm working, I'm trying very hard. That's not how life works. Government communication should, in my view, demonstrate greater sensitivity to the facts on the ground. I believe there's a challenge with their feedback system, and I believe that the combative posture of many of the spokespersons is not at all helping matters in terms of public perception.
All right, Prof, there are so many things to binge on. Now that you've talked about the issue of CNG, I think they earmarked 100 billion, if my data is correct, last year, 2024, I can't remember the exact year, for about 3,000 CNG buses, which is supposed to cushion the effect of transportation, but I don't know how that has come through. But before we, we'll come back to this issue of the interaction with the president and the Catholic bishop and generally the state of the economy. And I would like us also touch on security. But let's talk about this president's credential issue that never goes away. In my initial comments that we're talking about, I said the president knows that in perpetuity there are three things you have to deal with. And I think perhaps he has made peace with himself. The issue of the civil forfeiture of $460,000 in the 90s related to drug. It was a civil forfeiture, not a criminal conviction or indictment. So to that extent, he's not been found guilty by any court. And the issue of being able to satisfactorily explain the source of his wealth, given the war chest that he's claimed to have. And then the issue of his credential. Now, the credential is out in terms of publication by INEC. And then it has come out again, because this was an issue in the last election, I think during the petition itself. What do you make of it? No primary school, no secondary school, but as a university, of course. The constitution requires minimum school cert, so it doesn't ask for maximum, so you can go as far as you want.
Point number one, this issue is not new, as you said. Before we address the details down here, I'll ask all of us. We always speak of the international community that is interested in transparency, in good governance, in the rule of law, etc. I made this comment after the 2023 elections. Where is the international community today? Where were they in 2023? What does it mean to tell us that court records cannot be released in the service of democracy in Africa because you're protecting the private, what do you call it? The human rights or whatever of the candidate. That's where to begin all of this. Because assuming there's no international involvement in this whole business will have ended. Probably he wouldn't have contested. So, and these are the ones who come to monitor elections, who will tell us about due process, who will tell us about all sorts of things. So, step number one, dismiss the illusion that there is something called international community resting on the best values of right and wrong and determined to give Africa everything that the first world deserves. That's the first point. The second one is that if indeed INEC would dare to publish what it has done, INEC should also dare to make a pronouncement on the eligibility of the candidates whose names and credentials are published in terms of whether they are qualified based on what is published to contest the next elections. It is also for interested stakeholders, Nigerians, to look at the records and say, I'm taking this matter up, I'm going to court, but that presents a mild challenge. Recall that General Buhari, late former president, also had the challenge of school certificate. At a point, they procured one and showed it with his passport. It just happened that the passport on the certificate was a passport of him as president in his 80s. How he was able to take the school cert at that time and then fast forward to this time, looking exactly like this, I do not know. You will also recall that a military officer who once made public statements about the former president not having anything in their record showing the school, go and check what happened to his career after that event or that incident. So this is a touchy one, but you know, the government has been riding roughshod on these matters, and many positions of government will tell you till tomorrow, to the extent that there is not a court pronouncement on this, to that extent, we have nothing to worry about. Nigerians will tell you, to the extent there's something you call truth, good conscience, and propriety, that this matter only appears to make untrue the foundation of everyone who is defending it that is standing on. You know, so it's not a funny matter. INEC must go further. You published it, INEC should receive petitions. It's not INEC that will write the petition, but if INEC sees from the qualification that you do not meet the criteria or a single criterion for eligibility, INEC should go further to make that pronouncement. But I believe that from the publication, actually I've not seen as much heat as I expected from the publication. I thought the roof was going to come down from activists and other sundry groups, but it looks like that's not happening. I don't know whether it's fatigue, because a lot of people were sure that he wouldn't contest in 2023 because of that. Forfeiture, stories about drugs, all kinds of things floating in the air. Then the conspiracy against him from the presidency, if you recall. There were forces from within his party that didn't want him to contest. If you could get around all of that, defeat that, knock out the international coalition and emerge president, the opposition should wake up from speech making and know that they are yet to get a strategy with which they can displace the incumbent government.
And you talked about propriety. I wonder how that also trickles down to the electorate themselves in terms of maturity, because it is the electorate that also heads to the polls that decides. While there could be debate over the legitimacy of the votes handed down to the victorious candidate in the elections, but that's where we are anyway. So what would you say about the electorate themselves? Because some would say people are deserving of the kind of leaders that they vote in.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, let's not deceive ourselves. We're getting the value we ask for. When you want, if I'm a politician and I want to rig election, I will not be the one to do it. I will deploy people. They will accept money. If you're a voter and I want you to vote for me and I give you money and you accept it, you've already said it doesn't matter who I am. It doesn't matter what I do for the next 4 years. You've got your share. So if I give you 10,000 naira to vote for me, to buy your vote, I've settled you up front for 4 years at the rate of 2,500 naira per annum, and you dare not talk to me. So when people are saying, oh, there's corruption, we want democracy, there must be, and that's where the job of the parties are. Political mobilization must involve political education about choice. You're not mandated to make a choice because somebody has given you money. You're the one entering inside the polling booth yourself. So when you also have not matured to the point of connecting your suffering with the type of people you choose to rule you, the suffering will continue. Oh, schools are shut down. This government is not paying lecturers. Which government has ever really paid them well? But more importantly, those whose children are not going to school, what did they do during elections? Did they make the right choices? Did they consider that when you don't have the right people, the right things won't happen? So it is true. Leadership, everything depends on leadership. But what kind of followership do you have? All of you on this set now, as moderators of this program, if you are all made ministers today, what will your friends expect of you? One person will call you tomorrow, oh, he needs 5 million naira, his business is having challenges. Your cousins will start celebrating their turn has come. Your old students association will forward you the bill for rebuilding a new auditorium in the school. And if you go there and donate 100 million, they will clap. They are supposed to be the ones asking you, where did this money come from? When you go to church, you sit in front. When you go home, the traditional ruler gives you a chieftaincy title. Now, these are the pillars of morality that ought to restrain you. That your uncles or your extended family will say, come, Bayo, what is going on? 2 last year you could barely feed. Now you have 6 cats. I hope you've not gone on evil ways. Your pastor or your imam will call you and say, my son, the ways of this world are unclear. Can you tell me what's going on? The traditional ruler will examine. You see, we give titles only to those who want young people to emulate. It is not happening. And these institutions for morality and social integrity, if they are comprehensively violated, my dear, what do you expect? So who are those angelic followers that if you bring a good leader today, people will start dancing? We need a good leader, but that good leader must have the will and must have the lieutenants. Social expectations are part of the problem, but they cannot handicap a leader who is serious. It's about leadership signaling. The examples you set will compel people to begin to control their expectations until progressively they will not want people to represent them who they don't respect, who they know to be dishonest, etc. But I think one of the greatest, but I will leave that one there and take the next point.
Yeah, Prof, literally ran out of time, but I think I can just squeeze in 2 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I'm told we're totally out of time. I wanted to ask about military spending and all of that, but my producer said we're totally out of time. But I must thank you, Prof, for always coming through with that deep insight of yours. Professor K. Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. We'll be speaking with him on issues of the state of the nation. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.